I realized that at the very root of that, I felt deeply unsafe to be where I was, unsafe to let go of attachment to all of the things that my ego had convinced me that I needed and that I needed right away. And so the first step that I took was creating safety.
Welcome to the Multiple Truths podcast. We're your hosts, Holly
and Brittany. This is a space where we can come together healing in community, where we share our self-love journeys, insights, and wisdom.
A space with no hierarchy or judgment, fostering love, compassion, and respect, and where we honor our differences. With open minds and hearts, everyone's truth is welcome here. We are in this together. Let's dive into the episode.
Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Multiple Truths podcast. You are here with Brittany today, and I have a guest here with me. She is actually a dear, dear friend of mine, Micaela, and I'm going to introduce her to you in a moment. And we'll talk about like how we met and all of that because that's really fun as well. But she is a spiritual mentor and a hypnotherapist, which I think is really fascinating and cool. So we'll definitely talk about that a little bit as well. But without further ado, Micaela, hello. Thank you so much for being here today. How are you?
Hi, I'm so good. So happy to be here. And yeah, I know we've been planning this for a while, so it feels like there's been some like excitement building up.
I'm so excited to dive into conversation. And why don't we before we dive in to you and your story, because that's really what we're going to talk about today, I'd love to just let the audience know how we met.
Yes, absolutely. Well, me and Brittany met in Costa Rica at a Conscious Creator Retreat where both of us were just called there. We didn't really know why. We didn't know what was in store. Of course, the retreat sounded amazing at the most beautiful retreat center. Selva is insane. But when we got there, I just felt like I knew that I was there to meet certain people. And when me and Brittany really got the chance to connect, it just felt like a soul level connection. And I could tell that Brittany didn't know what to make of me at first. Like she was curious, not judgmental, but just dipping her toes in the water to get a feel for everyone. And then when she gave me a tarot reading, it was it just opened us up to that knowing each other on a soul level. So that was really cool.
Yeah, it's so funny because when you say oh, you weren't sure about me at first, I'm yeah, I wasn't sure. I'm kind of like that when I meet people, not that like you said in a bad way. I'm just a little I don't know if it's a Scorpio in me. I'm a little do I know you? Do I trust this person? Do I, you know what I'm saying? Just I like to kind of get a feel before I really open up. But it was that tarot reading I did for you when I felt into your energy. I was oh. And we actually got matching tattoos. And I love it so much. I always forget. I think it's on this side. It's behind our ear, the little starfish tattoo. But it's just, for those listening, if you're really on this path, you will meet soul family. And I'm sure some of you listening have already experienced this. Some of you listening might be at a place where you feel like not a lot of people understand you. I know, I was at a place like that with my spiritual journey, healing journey, awakening journey. I felt like nobody understood me, nobody got me. And then I really started to meet soul family. You really will meet people that see you and get you to your depths. It might take some time. So I guess my point with all of that and starting it out with our story too is if you're listening, know that there are people that you can meet in the most magical and unexpected ways. Most of my really good friends, soul family friends, they all live in other parts of the world. You're in San Diego, which is crazy because I spent 3 months there last year and we didn't know each other at the time. And just all other parts of the world. But yeah, anyways, with that said, I'm grateful you're here. Thank you so much for chatting with me today. For those listening, Micaela has a lot of wisdom to share. So, and I know that she's really been on a journey. She's been on a journey. She's been on the journey.
Still on the journey.
Still on the journey, as we all are. So let's dive into, or do you know what's coming to mind first? And maybe we'll talk about, because you're a hypnotherapist. Let's talk about that a little bit and then rewind all the way back to the beginning and how you kind of fell onto that path.
Yeah, absolutely. So I always knew that I wanted to do my own thing when it came to my career. Like, I just had always been a very independent spirit. I always wanted to have my own rules, create my own business. And I grew up with two therapist parents who they're really truly incredible. They built a really beautiful practice as couples counselors. They would actually like counsel couples together.
Mm,
And yeah, I just grew up watching them and the way that they positively impacted people just by being this deep presence of unconditional love. And I always knew that I wanted to support people in their healing. Just watching the impact that they made, it like
mm,
sparked that within me that, oh, I want to do something like this. But
mhm,
when I went to school, I studied psychology, and I just wasn't feeling super excited about any of the paths that were laid out in front of me. I wasn't feeling super excited about going into a very traditional and structured model of how to help people.
mm,
Um, and so that's when I kind of branched out and started looking into alternative ways to start my own business. And I looked into coaching for a while. I got a coaching certification. And I think what I realized along the way was that all of these different like modalities that I could use, all of these different certifications, they were great to get to give me some type of like structure, but what I was meant to do was do my own healing work on
mm,
myself and really recognize what are the things that work for me, what are the forms of coaching and the rituals and the tools that actually make an impact on the way that I feel and my connection to myself. And
mhm,
it took me quite a while to get there. I started building a business as a coach and realizing that a lot of what I learned as far as like strategy to help people, it wasn't actually working and it wasn't actually supportive to me because there was somewhere deeper that I was called.
mm,
So that's when I started to research more about the subconscious mind and understand,
mm,
like, at a deeper level, what is going on within me that is preventing me from making positive changes in my life? What is going on within me that is preventing me from like ending these patterns that I
mhm,
know are bad, that I
mhm,
know are holding me back in a certain way? I had to go a little bit deeper with that. And that's when I looked into hypnotherapy, because
mm,
for those of you who don't know what hypnotherapy is, it really is the process of communicating with the subconscious mind, understanding
mm,
more about what's going on under the surface, the patterns that you absorbed, the beliefs that you absorbed throughout your life that have created certain parts of you that maybe you feel like you're at war with. Maybe you feel like they're kind of running the show and leading you to these patterns that are just making you feel really unfulfilled on a daily
mm,
basis, or keeping you stuck in relationships that are not serving you, or habits that are not serving you, a form of relationship with yourself that isn't serving you. Hypnotherapy allows us to kind of get to the root of what's going on under the surface and begin to communicate with the subconscious mind. And so
mm,
that's why I really love it, because I feel that it is a modality that can just go a little bit deeper than
mm,
just traditional talk therapy or life coaching.
mm,
It's a way to connect with yourself at a deeper level. And
mm,
I don't just do hypnotherapy because I don't personally feel that just trying to change your subconscious beliefs is enough. I believe that there needs to be a foundation of relationship with self
mm,
first to
mm,
feel safe enough to go there, because that was my own
mm,
experience. It's not going to be the same for everyone, but
mm,
I have actually had a really hard time feeling safe enough to relax and rewire my subconscious mind, go into those spaces and recognize why those beliefs are there in the first place, and then feel safe enough to change them. I've had a long journey with that, which I'm excited to talk about today, because yeah, I've had so many breakthroughs that I know will be helpful for anyone who is already on that path of knowing, okay, I have some subconscious stuff that I need to work on, but like, how do I actually get there? How do I actually get to a place where my body feels safe enough to integrate
mm.
these new beliefs in and to go through the process of hypnotherapy or meditation and actually make these changes. So, yeah.
Oh, thank you so much. I just had waves and waves of chills as you were talking. There was a few things I'm like, "Ooh, I wanna talk about this. I wanna talk about this. I wanna talk about this." I'm sure we'll get into it more as we continue. So yeah, for those listening, One thing I do want to say that's coming to mind with hypnotherapy specifically, as you mentioned, it's like, it sounds like such a beautiful modality. I personally have never been under hypnotherapy. I feel like I'm going to get you to take me under
Yes,
one of these days
absolutely.
because I'm like, I need to give this a go. But what was coming to mind is I love how you talk about it's because there's so many different forms of healing. I know on this channel, like, I am a huge advocate for plant medicine. With that said, there can be a dark side to that, and you don't need plant medicine to really heal or do, to heal or to get to the subconscious mind. I feel like there's so many other ways that are not really talked about. And I feel like hypnotherapy could be such a beautiful and profound way for somebody, for anybody. All paths are different. So if you're listening and hypnotherapy sounds like something you would be interested in, definitely trust yourself with that. We'll have all of, Micaela's stuff linked below. I don't know if you're actively doing work right now, but we'll kind of talk about that later. But anyways, with all of that said, I just feel like I'm excited to really talk about this today and your story, because I feel like it could be like hypnotherapy can be a doorway for really, really deep healing. I'm sure you've seen that with like your clients and whatnot. Anyways, um, let's dive into your story, because I know you've been on a journey, and you know, um, to get to where you're at, takes a lot of dedication and time. So yeah, I'm excited to hear the wisdom that you have to share with us today.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm excited to share it. And yeah, I'm excited to talk more about like the process of hypnotherapy too, because it has been really healing. And yeah, so we'll get to that at the end maybe. And I'll just dive in. So I grew up in Massachusetts. So for those of you who heard Brittany before, I live in San Diego now. I moved here about 4 years ago. And growing up in Massachusetts, I felt like my family was like this little bubble,
Mhm.
and everything else out in the world felt really cruel, intense, harsh, overwhelming coming from the family that I did. My family is not perfect. My parents, even though they are therapists and had done a certain level of work on themselves, I still experienced trauma growing up in the family that I grew up in. I still experienced a lot of difficulties, but what I did experience was this profound container of unconditional love.
Mm.
Like the love that my parents both had for themselves, the work that they did a lot of work on themselves, and they had some really difficult lives before that.
Mm.
So it's like the work that they had done on themselves truly and deeply impacted the safety that I felt as a child
Mm.
to receive love and to be love. And I feel like I came into this world just beaming with love, like ready to
Mhm.
love everyone on my path, ready to connect, ready to play. And
Mm.
I think that as beautiful as it is and was to grow up in that container with my parents, um, the world was not that container.
Mm.
The world was very different than what I experienced at home. And
Mm.
I think what I experienced when I went out into school and started to connect with other kids and, started to have teachers and coaches and just other people from all different backgrounds, all different energies around me, I felt a massive shock, like a sting to my heart.
Mm.
If
Mm.
you can imagine like my heart being so open
Mm.
and feeling so safe, and
Mhm.
then the sting of somebody else's pain
It's like
coming.
it's like I'm seeing like the coldness in the world, because
Yeah.
unfortunately a lot of people are closed off and cold as a defense mechanism, a protection mechanism, not blaming anybody. But it does feel like that is the reality of much of this world. And it's funny, I'm literally wearing my Care Bears sweater today with like a big heart on it. I'm like, this is so fitting for Micaela, because like knowing you, she literally has the biggest heart. Like, and I didn't plan this, just as you were talking about having a big heart. I'm like, I'm literally wearing my like love sweater today. So
I love it.
any, anyways, please do continue.
Yeah, I think the experience was feeling so connected to the truth, which
Mm,
is that we are unconditional love at that deepest level underneath all of the pain and all
mhm,
of the distortion. That's who
mhm,
we all truly are.
mm,
And it's like everyone I encountered in the world just had forgotten that,
mhm,
right? They were shut down to their own light. They had experienced their own pain. I see it
mm,
as like this domino effect in the world where one person in pain does have the ability to almost like infect another person with their pain by projecting it and
mm,
judging. And of
mm,
course, we all have our ability to say no, that's not mine, that's a
mhm,
projection, I'm not going to take that on. But
mm.
as a child we don't really know.
It's not there. The awareness is not yet there.
Yeah, and therefore the protection is not there. It's when someone
Absolutely.
projects their pain or their judgment onto you, it's like you take that on as, "Oh, I'm doing something wrong.
Yeah,
I'm being too much. I need to shut down a little bit more. I need to be more like everybody else." And I think that I subconsciously experienced, that shutdown slowly over time because I was just trying to protect myself.
right.
I was just trying to feel like I was part of the community, that I could connect with other people, and it was almost like being my true self was threatening,
Mhm.
and it made me a target for
Yeah.
judgment and pain.
Yeah, because you grew up in an environment where you were comfortable being with yourself, comfortable being yourself because your parents provided that safe container. I could only imagine like going into school that way. The kids probably don't understand you. The teachers probably don't understand you because so many of them are so closed off. That cold, it's like a cold shield that they have over them, a layer of protection, as we said before, nobody's fault. But I can only imagine. I mean, I know, for me personally, going on my journey later on in life when I truly became comfortable with being true to myself, because I don't think I ever was. I could never fully be myself around my parents. That was something that, yeah, I always felt like I needed to be somebody else. So for years and years and years, I didn't even realize that I was trying to be somebody else. And when I eventually became comfortable with being myself through the healing journey, the backlash you get, the judgment you get,
Yeah.
all of that. So I can only imagine what that would have been like in school. Um, yeah. So I don't know if you want to talk about that a little bit or if
Yeah.
you had some experiences.
Yeah, yeah. I think a lot of what I experienced was more like a subtle energy
Mm,
towards me of like I just don't really like this girl and I don't really know why, but
mm,
I it's like because they're unconsciously projecting their pain.
right.
And so it's like they want to like me,
Yeah.
but there's something about me that really bothered them.
You triggered
And
them.
yeah, yeah, and I think that is almost more confusing than
Mm,
outright, like, being mean to someone straight up, you know?
absolutely. Because there's no like, neither of you really know what's going on.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly, and also I believe as a child and, now I'm waking up to this again, but I was incredibly psychic too, and we
Mm,
all pretty much are as children. We're so
mhm,
much more in touch with, like,
mhm,
what's truly going on, and so I think I could really feel it and
mm,
know it. That's,
mm,
a gift that I'm tapping into right now is
mm.
my claircognizance that's really strong,
Yes.
and, it's confusing though, like, clear knowing, it's like,
Mhm.
this is I just know
I just
this, and I don't have any way to, like, really prove that it's
mhm,
true other
mhm.
than the fact that I just know it.
Yeah,
And I think that's, as a child, very confusing because adults don't listen to you when you say, "I just know this,"
yeah.
And so I think more so my experience was feeling this really off energy, knowing that it
Mm,
was there, knowing that it was present, feeling like in community, I was there and wanting to connect and wanting to be close, but there was something about me that just felt like just a little bit other.
yeah, yeah.
And, I did my pattern as a child was that I would connect with people really well one-on-one.
Mm,
Like, when people really got
mhm.
to know me
That makes
and
sense.
could move past their own judgment, it
Yeah.
was like the deepest friendship, the
Mm.
deepest connection, like so fulfilling. But I always had trouble in groups feeling like, okay, where do I fit in? How
Yeah.
do I relate? How do I connect to these people? And
Mhm.
I think part of that is like, when you say you had a really hard time being yourself with your parents, usually that comes from your parents just like wanting you to survive and fit in the world. So
Mm.
they're like, oh, you need to act this way. You need to do this. You need to be interested in these things. And it
Yeah.
almost serves as like this guidance for you to fit in and
Mhm.
to find a sense of belonging because it's like
Yeah.
everybody else in the world is like operating in that way in survival mode,
Yes.
essentially.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think not having that structure at home of like, hey, you should act like this and dress like this and be like this so that you can connect and be a part of community, not having that made it feel really challenging to do
Yeah.
so. I'm having like a lot of realizations even now as I'm talking about it.
Yeah, no, well, it makes so much sense to me because it's for me, and I know very much so, this was protection. My parents wanted the best for us, so they did the best they could with the tools they had. They also loved us more than anything, and I'm so grateful for that because I know not everybody can say that. With that said, I never was able to fully be myself, but I knew how to fit in. Like I was a chameleon. Let me tell you, I was even in high school. I was the person that was friends with every group. I never really fit. I mean, I did, but I didn't. I won't get into like that specifically right now, but like I knew how to fit in because I knew what was expected of me. I was also very sensitive, so I could read a person like that. I just knew how to act because I
Mhm.
knew what they were comfortable with. So I did so at my own sacrifice, if that makes sense, like not allowing myself to fully be me. But with you, it's like so different because what you taught at home, it's like you should be yourself, and we need connection at the end of the day. Like we need connection. We want connection. So going into these environments where it's kind of like you lacked that connection, just do you know what I'm saying? Like that would have been really, I could only imagine how difficult, that was. I would, and if you don't want to talk about this is absolutely okay. But so both you and I went to private school.
Mhm.
Right. I went to private school, elementary and high school. I know you went to private school as well, but you went to a public elementary and then a private high school?
No, so I went to a very different elementary and middle school than I did high school. I think I was
Oh,
meant
yes.
to experience like the complete contrast of
Yes.
two different school environments. With that being said, my elementary and middle school, it was I don't know how to put it other than like kind of like a Montessori style school, like almost like a hippie school. Like that's how people would consider it because we didn't have grades or tests or a lot of homework. It was very hands-on learning. I think the school itself was like a really beautiful model.
Mhm.
There was still a lot of judgment there and like it was not as intense I would say as going into public school,
Mhm.
but I think there were a lot of parents and children who were still trying to kind of like fit into the matrix, fit into this
Yeah.
world in some way.
Yeah. And the reason why I asked because I remember now I
Yeah.
love the model of your other school. Like, I think that's
Right?
so beneficial. But then you went into like a private school after that, right?
I went into a Catholic preparatory school
Okay.
after that.
My school was Catholic as well. Like, when I say
Yeah.
private, I mean, like, Catholic, private,
Yeah.
semi-private or whatever. So, it is from somebody who's been in that system since kindergarten, it's very strict. I remember, like, I wasn't even allowed to wear nail polish in elementary school. Like, in high school, they'd walk around with cue cards, and if our kilt was, like, a cue card above our knee, we'd get a uniform infraction. If we had 2 uniform infractions, we were suspended for the day. So, we were, like, it was super, super, super strict. So, you're going from all of this freedom at home, semi freedom in school compared to like other more structured schools. And then you're put into this extremely strict environment. I mean, I know what happened, but I would, if you're comfortable sharing, like, I feel like I remember when I found out, I was like, you? We'll get
Yeah.
into that in a minute. I'll let you tell the story, but
Well, I feel like what my experience in that elementary and middle school created was like I was able to think for myself.
yeah.
Like that's what they really encouraged was, having your own thoughts, having your own opinions, asking questions, learning
Mhm.
through experience. And I think it definitely created, when I said in the beginning how I always wanted to do my own thing,
Mhm.
it like created this imprint in me of
Mm.
like being able to create my own structure,
Yeah.
create my own desire to learn, desire to build something.
Mhm.
And so I'm really grateful for that. What I will say is that at that time, I still didn't feel like I was in a space that really helped me stay connected to myself and connected to my own light. I really struggled once I got to middle school.
Mm.
And Brittany knows this, but I experienced severe disconnection from my body, starting with a binge eating addiction, starting with, you know, just wishing I could be in anyone else's body. And I think that really does have to do with the disconnection from myself that
Mm.
happened, because it was like I was starving for something and I didn't know what it was. I didn't
Right.
know that I had been disconnected from myself,
Mm.
and so I think by the time I, like, transitioned into high school, I didn't really know who I was. I didn't really know what I wanted, and I had to just choose a high school. Like,
Mm.
my school didn't go on, and I found this high school I just wanted to go because they had, like, a new dance studio they had built, and I
Mm.
thought maybe I could dance there. I had no clue what I was getting myself
Yeah.
into
Yeah.
by choosing a Catholic school.
Mm.
I didn't realize that I was going to be surrounded by more judgment than I had ever
Mm.
experienced in my life,
Mhm.
more pressure to conform than I had ever experienced in my life, more fear,
Mm.
fear-based teachings and fear-based programmings than I had ever experienced in my life. And I think when I arrived there, I was just in like utter disbelief.
Mm.
Like I couldn't believe that that was a way of living and a way of thinking that so many people grew up in. And this is not a judgment at all to
Mm.
anyone who, has specific religious beliefs. I will
Mhm.
say in the school that I was in, it felt really, really heavy and
Mhm.
really, really dark, to be
Mhm.
honest. It
Mhm.
just there was so much judgment, and you could just feel that when you walked through the doors. It didn't feel like there was any real connection to unconditional love, and
Yeah.
that to me was like what I always felt like God was unconditional love. And so
Mhm.
I was just very confused that there were so many people operating under this fear that if they didn't adhere to these certain rules that they were going to go to hell. That really confused me.
Yeah. Absolutely. And, and I could only imagine because you saw through the bullshit, for lack of a better word. Like you saw through the bullshit. And again, this is also me not judging anybody with a specific religion. I do believe there is truth in all religion, and I've met very beautiful people who are religious. With that said, I was raised very Catholic. Church every Sunday, Catholic elementary and high school. And I also now see the judgment. Some of the most judgmental people that I've been around, if I'm being completely honest, and I'm talking about my experience. Again, I'm not judging any specific person who is religious or anything like that. But I could only imagine like the stark contrast that you experienced was probably like a slap in the face. And it's kind of like you are still discovering who you are. You don't even know who you are, but you're also like in an environment where it's like you're also very aware and open and see the bullshit.
Yeah.
And I know, what's coming to mind for me when I was in high school, they would kick people out of the school all the time. Like if you caused a little bit of trouble, like I remember one person that I know, I'm not going to name names because it doesn't matter, but he would like smoke weed. And because like, he would smoke weed at lunch, he got caught a couple times. He got kicked out of the school, like suspended. It's like if you did
Mhm.
not conform, if you did not follow our exact rules, if you pushed back a little bit, we don't want to deal with you, we kick you out.
Mhm.
And that's not unconditional love, like, what you were saying. So,
Absolutely. I mean, I experienced that so often in my school. I remember I had a friend, it was like a partial boarding school, partial day school. I was a day student, but I had a friend who lived in the dorms, and he got caught smoking weed
mm,
one time, and without question they expelled him. And
wow.
he was from Mexico, so he like didn't get to say goodbye to any of us. He went
Mm,
back to Mexico, and we never heard from him again. Like
wow.
it's like that stark of a, oh, you made this mistake. This is your punishment. There's no room for redemption here. There's
Mm,
no room for learning when
yeah.
I personally believe the best thing to do in that scenario is to try to understand why.
Yes. And
Why are you doing this? Why are you breaking these rules? Why are you needing this substance in the first place? Is there a way we can support you and help you as you start to like adhere to our rules again?
yeah.
Because I understand not wanting high schoolers to smoke weed on campus.
Yeah.
Like I get that.
Yeah.
But there's just no compassion. There's
Yeah.
no effort to try to help people
Mhm.
in any way. And like that's what the basis of, I believe, like religion should be about, is
Yeah.
like how can we like support our community, and there wasn't that if you made a mistake.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm like losing my train of thought, but exactly that. And like what I was going to say the same thing. It's about understanding. It's instead of like, oh, you're wrong, you're a troubled child, we need to get rid of you. Where's the compassion? Where's the understanding? Because clearly it's. I mean, we see it clearly now, a cry for help, or you know what I'm saying? And this is not me, I also want to acknowledge that I feel like a lot of the teachers in those schools, like genuinely, like I feel like they do have good hearts and they mean well. So that I'm not trying to just like shit talk, people of religion or people who are in Catholic schools or anything like that. I mean, I was really immersed in that environment, and a lot of these people are good people at the end of the day.
Right.
They just have these shields up because of the world and its protection and X, Y, and Z. So I just, want to make that clear. But
Yeah, that's absolutely what happens too when there's so much fear programmed in you at such an early
mm,
age. It's I think that there is no like blanket statement that people who are religious don't have compassion or unconditional love within them. I think you can absolutely subscribe to a lot of what's taught,
yeah.
and also think for yourself and
Hmm.
recognize when something feels wrong.
Yeah.
Recognize when maybe I'm just believing this because I was taught this and I'm not really actively thinking for myself, does this feel right? Does this
Yeah.
feel compassionate? Does this
Hmm.
feel loving?
Yeah.
And I know there are a lot of people who are religious who also have that ability to ask themselves those questions.
Absolutely. 100%. So thank you for saying that. And one
Yeah.
thing that's coming to mind, a question that I want to ask.
Yeah.
I'm kind of like, my mind's going back to when you said you were coaching for a bit, and you discovered that, okay, what you said something like what you were being taught wasn't actually working. And
Mhm.
I feel like that's something that's so important. We could talk about it for a little bit, but I feel like there's so many like, oh, just get your coaching certification. And there's a lot of these coaches out there that haven't actually done the work on themselves yet. Do you know what I'm saying? And I feel like it could be a dangerous world. I know that you had a little experience with a spiritual mentor, without like naming names or anything like that, of course, that
Yeah.
ended up disappointing you kind of for that reason. So I'm curious if you kind of want to get into that a little bit.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think because coaching is a highly unregulated industry,
Mhm.
there is a lot of room for error
Mhm.
and being misled, right?
Mhm.
Because I believe that spiritual mentorship, coaching, it is targeting a highly vulnerable population.
Yes.
I've been the vulnerable population. I've
Mhm.
also been on the other side of being a coach, being a mentor, and I see how many coaches are taught to say that they have the answer to your problem
Mm.
when they haven't actually experienced healing themselves from that
Mm.
problem or finding the answer
Mm.
themselves. They learn some type of framework that supposedly works, and they're taught to just sell that and teach that. A lot of what we learn in the coaching industry is all about sales, how to speak to people's pain points and almost
Mm.
exploit those pain points to make money. And it's like, because most people who get into that industry have a percentage of them that is truly devoted to helping people and wants
Mhm.
that, it's
Mhm.
like I feel like the ego almost uses that small part to make sense of what you're doing. Like,
Yeah.
oh, okay, I do want to help people. I am coming from a good place. Yes, that is true. And you could also be coming from a darker energy with
Mm.
it, where you're just kind of out to get yours, out to build your own business, out to
Mhm.
make money. And, I think the claim in the coaching industry is that, oh, if my coaching program doesn't work for you, it's because you didn't show up for yourself. It's
Mm.
because you didn't try hard enough. You didn't put in the work.
Mm.
That's kind of how these coaches get away with it. And it's true because, like, when a coach gives you some type of work to do and you don't do it, right? It is you not showing up for
Mhm.
yourself. But the coaches don't understand why it's hard for
Mhm.
people to show up for themselves, why
Mhm.
it's challenging to
Mhm.
take that action that they're telling
Mhm.
people to take. They
Mhm.
refuse to go deeper into
Yeah.
that and ask, why are so many of my clients unable to wake up every morning and do this meditation and speak affirmations and start speaking to themselves more positively and manifest the reality that they want? Why is that so hard?
Mhm.
The coaches aren't asking themselves that question because it would require a very deep dive
Yeah.
and to likely lose out on profit.
Yeah.
So I just think there's like a really dark energy to that industry that is covered up by the small percentage of them that truly want to help. And yeah, so I know you're gonna have a lot to say
No,
on that
yeah.
too.
I just like, yeah, like I had chills as you were talking. And, you know, I feel like a lot of people who are in the coaching industry, like you said, I feel like, and this is not even just coaching, this is readers as well, people in the
Yeah.
spiritual space, healers. You cannot, like, we have this like I know I have this like calling. I'm like, I have this like greater calling. And I know a lot of people can resonate with that. Like, I feel like I'm here to help people. And a lot of people feel like they're here to help people. A lot of people are here to help people. Like, we're here to help each other. We're all
Yes.
here to help each other because we can't do it alone. We all have these special and unique and amazing gifts. And when you share yours with mine, it helps me with my growth. When I share mine with yours, it helps you with your growth. So yes, it, like, if you have a calling and you feel like you're here to help people, there's nothing wrong with that. But where a lot of people go wrong is they don't know how to help themselves first. It's like they try
Right.
to bypass that part. So I feel like a lot of people in these positions, I feel like they do mean well. They genuinely mean well, but there are things that they are not yet aware of. The darkness within themselves, they are not yet aware of. A lot of it has to do with money wounds because a lot of us base our success and our worth off of money. So
Right.
that's where it gets salesy, the this, the that. They're just trying to like make more money, be a girl boss, blah, 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 blah. And it's that dark energy, but they're not even aware that the dark energy is there because they haven't done that work within themselves yet to recognize it, if that makes
Right.
sense. And that's where it can get really dangerous. And as you said, a lot of these people coming to coaches, coming to readers are so vulnerable. They're
Right.
so vulnerable that they themselves are not yet at a place to recognize the red flags. And all that does is, you know, it can, you know, somebody can become in, they could get themselves into a worse place, for lack of a better word,
Mhm.
you know, cults are even coming to mind, you know, that's like a bigger scale, but same kind of a thing, right? It's like you have this one person, I have the answers, blah, blah, blah. And then you go to them and really it's like, it only is, um, I can't think of the exact word, but it's like patterns are only repeated. You end up
Yes.
feeling worse about yourself. There's no growth that really, really does happen. And, you know, I'm curious about your experience on both ends. And
Yeah.
for those listening, like, I just want to acknowledge you for one moment. Like, Micaela has such a beautiful heart and she's really on the fucking journey. Like, when I tell you, she's like, you're really doing the work. You're dedicated to truly healing. And so much so that I know that you stopped working for a while because you're kind of like, I want to make sure that when I do help people, it's actually coming from a pure place. I
Yeah.
want to make sure that I am very aware of my darkness and my shadows so that I do not unknowingly project it onto others. And I honor you for that because I know it's not easy to do that because, you know, the money, the this, we base our success on of all of these external things. So it just speaks volumes to who you are and your character. So for those listening, I just, you know, I just want to acknowledge you, but you've experienced both sides of it. So I'm really curious, I guess, how that was for you, like when you were on the more vulnerable side, how that played out for you and how yeah, I'll let you go, but I'm curious how
Yeah.
that all transpired.
Yeah, I mean, I think like what you're talking about when you say that getting into that side can be harmful when you are vulnerable, when you're wanting to learn. It can be because what I experienced was a complete disconnection from myself,
Mhm.
almost dissociating
Mm,
from what was currently showing up for me in order to manifest and take action and make
mhm,
changes and just try to get mine. Like, I think
Mhm.
that's very much the energy of what's taught in the coaching industry is like, how can I meet all of my ego's needs so I can
Mm.
finally feel better, right? Like, how
Oh.
can I
Mm.
feed these parts of me that feel like they're starving with the outer success, the money, the relationships, whatever it is. I feel like that's very much what I was taught when I sought mentorship. I
Mhm.
wasn't exactly taught how to go deeper than
Mhm.
that. Why do I feel like I need these things to
Right.
feel better?
Mhm.
And I feel like when I was first coaching, when I was first mentoring, I thankfully had this experience with my parents of such unconditional love that showed up in my containers, but I wasn't really sure
Mhm.
how to get people to this deeper place of healing that I want to talk about. I feel like the dark side of the coaching industry and what I was taught, what I experienced when I was vulnerable was very much all mind based. It
Mhm.
was trying to control my outer circumstances by sheer willpower and forcing myself. And I think a lot of what we're taught is all about changing your reality, being this powerful manifester, being this creator.
Mhm.
And we truthfully all are.
Mhm.
But when you just try to operate from the mind and say, oh, I'm going to manifest this, I'm going to manifest $1 million in my business, I'm going to manifest this relationship, what we don't realize is that we're typically manifesting from the ego,
Uh-huh.
and it leads to ultimately feeling very dissatisfied, feeling like you're on this constant chase. And I
Mhm.
didn't have anybody to wake me up to that. Like, I had to be on that path of trying to change my beliefs through force for
Yeah.
so long,
Yeah.
where I was like, I felt broken. Like, I felt
Yeah.
like there was something wrong with me because I wasn't experiencing change in my life. And I see that that is a place where so many people get stuck
Mm.
because there are so many coaches out there
Mm.
trying to teach from this purely mind
Mhm.
dominated place,
Mhm.
when the experience of this reality is so much deeper than just the mind.
Yeah.
It is so much deeper than just trying to manifest your ego's desires and
Yeah.
like thinking that you're going to be satisfied from that. There's so much more to it. And it's like, I think the moment where I dove deeper was really challenging because my ego was telling me I didn't have time, that
Right.
I was needing to be successful already, that I was needing to keep chasing. And I think that's what keeps most people stuck, is
Yeah.
that we believe we don't have time to do this deeper work. But like, I personally feel like that's why I'm here.
Yeah.
You know, I'm here to go deeper. I'm here to keep asking questions. I'm here to
Mhm.
get to the truth. And when I started to feel the dissatisfaction from all the money that I had invested in those other mentors, feeling like I was still stuck in the same place, that's when I started to truly dive deeper and ask myself more questions.
Yeah.
And that's where I'm coming from now when I teach. I have taken a break from one on one mentorship because I feel like Micaela needs me. Like, my
Wow.
inner child needs
Yeah.
me right
Mhm.
now to be there with her, go
Yeah.
deep with her, not keep her in this rushed place of trying to like build
Mhm.
this huge business for
Mhm.
myself. I think I've just realized over time, working with plant medicine, going deeper with myself, finding mentors that truly know how to help me,
Yeah.
I've realized how important it is for me to come from that truly pure place of just wanting to help. And if there is abundance that comes from that, I will be grateful when that comes, but I cannot have even a percentage of what I'm doing come from that place of needing to get something for myself.
Mm. Mm.
With the work that I'm doing, I just know that it has to come from a very, very pure place. And that's what I ask for before I create anything. It's like, how can I get my own ego's agenda out of the way and
Mhm.
just serve?
Yeah. And I think that's so, so important. That's the most important thing. And it's so beautiful. That's how you can truly help other people. That's how you can truly show up for other people. And, you're talking about a lot of people manifesting it's through the mind. I like to, in my mind, it's like to me, the ego is like the mind and the soul is the heart. And
Mhm.
it's so important to be coming from a place of the heart, of love. Often, though, it will be the slower path. Often, though, that's not the path where windfalls of money just come to you. It's like slow and steady, and it's humble. It's humble, and it's I can't think of the word, but it, it it will test your patience as well, because like you said, we're programmed to expect that instant gratification. We want it now, and whenever we're in this uncomfortable place, we're taught to slap a band-aid on it. Oh, you're uncomfortable, let's slap a band-aid on it, as opposed to sitting through that uncomfortability. That's often where, a lot of the learning and whatnot will happen. On my journey as well, I stopped working for about 6 months myself. I stopped doing readings because I had the message of like, you need to stop. Like and I needed to, because like you said, I needed to show up for myself. I needed to give all of my energy into me. And, I ended up going in the hole when it comes to money. That money ended up coming back 6 months later. But it should never be about the money. You should never be doing things for that external validation.
Right.
So it's really beautiful to know that there really are people out there that truly are dedicated to serve in the way from love, that are
Yeah.
dedicated to serving from love. Because I feel like, and again, not blaming people because people are unaware, but currently I feel like the majority almost out there, it's, there's wounds that are associated with it, money wounds and this, and again, it's to serve the ego. um that's why they say like the devil, quote unquote, the devil is tricky. It's, to me, it's like, I believe that God and the devil both reside within us. Good and evil both reside within us. Those are just the labels, but it's getting yourself to a place where you can recognize and recognize the two different voices. You can recognize, okay, what is the wounded voice versus what is the voice that's coming from love. And when you're able to recognize the two, that's when it is up to you to choose good. But a lot of people are not at a place where they're able to recognize the difference. And that's where the real work needs to be done.
Hey guys, we are super excited to announce the launch of something new. We will be launching something called a community on a platform called School. That's SKOOL. It's similar to a Patreon, but better. It's a platform for learning and, well, community. Basically, it will give you access to exclusive content from both Holly and I. Holly is a certified holistic health coach, and she is also a certified embodiment coach. I have a degree in kinesiology and received a certification in personal training. I also am an advancing student in mediumship development and have been channeling spirit for as long as I can remember. Through our own experience and journeys, as well as our knowledge gained through education, we will be curating content to specifically aid in your journeys back home to self. This will include monthly guided meditations, guided embodiment practices, pick-a-card readings, energy healing, guided workouts, and healthy recipes. It will also include important teachings to help you become the most embodied version of yourself. Some topics will include how to connect with your intuition, how to tap into the psychic within you, how to heal your inner child, how to face and understand your ego, how to heal your relationship with your body and food, and more. This platform will also allow for conversation and connection with others who are also part of the community, giving you the opportunity to potentially meet other like-minded individuals who are also on the path of becoming the best versions of themselves. This path is not easy and at times can be isolating. We are not supposed to do this alone. Community is so healing and so important, so we hope this will provide support for you regardless of where you might be on your journey. It's only $22.22 a month, where you will have unlimited access to all of the content as well as the new content rolled out monthly. It will also give you a $10 discount on our monthly healing circles. Holly and I both struggled with self-image, self-confidence, knowing our self-worth, and knowing what it means to truly love ourselves majority of our lives. The truth is that we are not taught how to properly love ourselves in this day and age, and we are on a mission to make change. We owe it to the future generations to come. We believe that it is important to love your mind,
body, and spirit cohesively in order to truly step into the highest, most authentic version of yourself. We hope to see you there, honey.
Right. I also think too, like, this isn't to say that, you know, you have to be fully healed to be able to coach or mentor or support somebody.
Mm-hmm.
I I know that the clients that I did have over the years were supported by, you know, what I was offering, and even from the mentors that I did have, I was supported by what they were offering. I think if you lose your sense of self in that mentorship, or you're not encouraged to reflect upon your own personal truth throughout that process, that's when it gets dangerous. So
Mm-hmm.
I had to really come to terms with like the beautiful aspects of the mentorship that I received, and also the dark side of it. And when I talk about like the dark energy of the coaching industry, I just think that it is really easy to manipulate people who don't have that connection to themselves by not teaching them how to have that connection to themselves. I think that's the most important thing for coaches and mentors to teach is, you know, we were talking about this the other day. It's like, this is my truth of what I'm sharing with you. This is what I'm getting. How does that resonate with you? How does that land with you? How does that feel in your body? Teaching the people who are coming to you for help how to discern and how to have their own answers is ultimately the most important thing that we can do, because that's what will lead them to no longer be dependent on you. You don't want to create dependency in the relationship. You want their investment that they put into this time with you to pay off for them and give them access, help them rediscover their own innate access to their power. And so, yeah, I think that's like, if you're seeing a coach, just check in. Are they encouraging me to check in with myself?
Yeah.
Are they encouraging me to build upon my self-trust? Because that's the thing that you want to look out for the most.
Yeah, it's like building security and safety from within. When you have security and safety from within, whoa, your life really will change, but it's a journey. And I love that you mentioned you don't have to be fully healed, because absolutely, like healing is a literal forever journey. We're never fully healed. There's always going to be another layer of the onion to peel back. But I love how you say, you know, it's really having that sense of self. Are you reflecting? Are you in a place where, you know, you are honest with yourself and you are really doing the work? It's like, I feel like you should be walking the walk instead of just talking the talk, as a coach.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So thank you for all of that, because I feel like that's, yeah, just so many chills. Like as you're talking, I'm like, yes, like keep going.
Yeah.
Um, I'm curious if there was, like, I know there's so many other parts of your story and whatnot that we haven't talked about. We're already at 50 minutes. I'm like, what is going on? Like, I know, I feel like we can just talk for hours and hours.
Yeah.
I'm curious though, is there anything else that you want to talk about that you feel would be beneficial, tied to your story, tied to what you've learned, anything at all?
Yeah, I think, you know, as we were talking about like the downside of coaching, I kind of want to talk about what I've tapped into now as to what
Mm,
works, because I think everyone deserves to have like
mm,
access to this
mhm,
information. And again, this is really what's worked for me, but I know that this is what I felt was like missing in the information that was available to me. So I would love to touch on that, because I know it will be really helpful for at least some people to hear like where I went from that
mm.
mind dominated space and how I started to actually feel better. Um,
Please.
so is that good? Yeah,
Yes,
okay, cool.
absolutely.
Um, so as I shifted from trying to just manifest from my ego, trying to create from my ego, trying to make all of these changes in my life, I realized that at the very root of that, I felt deeply unsafe.
Mhm,
Unsafe to be where I was, unsafe to let go of attachment to all of the things that my ego had convinced me that I needed and that I needed right away. And
mhm,
so the first step that I took was creating safety
mm,
within myself. And a lot
mm,
of people talk about nervous system regulation. I was doing
mm,
a lot of practices for that, but ultimately what I was doing was trying to like respark the connection to myself that I had lost at that young age, when I realized being myself was getting me in trouble, that I was disconnected from community because I was being myself, that I was threatening to people. I had to work on resparking that connection with me and
Mm,
healing from that voice in my head that took over to help me survive, that told me that I was in a rush, that I was doing everything wrong, that I needed to be all of these things that I wasn't in order to receive that love and connection. I realized that voice had taken over my life, and it was leading me to just chase
yeah.
and to never feel at peace, never to feel safe, never to
Mhm.
feel content or abundant. When people would tell me to sit in gratitude, I would want to crawl out of my skin because I felt like I was so incomplete. And
Mm,
so that was like a sign to me that I really needed to work on connecting to myself. So when I started to do that, it was really hard. Like, it
yeah.
felt horrible to
Mm,
try to just be with myself. And I started talking to myself in the mirror. I started speaking to myself out loud. I started holding myself. And I watch Brittany do this all the time when she makes her videos where she's in the process of holding these deeper emotions.
mm,
Um, it's like that connection with yourself has to be there in
mm,
order for these stagnant energies that have been within your body since who knows how long, that
mhm,
those are the things that are keeping you anchored in that heavier vibration and that stressful
mm,
ego-based state. Those energies
mm,
and those emotions that are stuck in your body, that's what's keeping you there, right? And
mm,
so trying to talk yourself out of it with affirmations or just mind-based techniques, it doesn't work.
mhm,
Holding myself and creating the safety for those emotions to start moving through me was the thing that first started to work. And
mm.
when I say it first started to work, it felt absolutely horrible because I was feeling for the first time and
Yeah.
I was like, what the fuck? I'm going
Right.
backwards.
Mhm.
Like,
And can I say something really quick?
yeah,
It's like it can be confusing for people because it's like, why am I feeling this way? Where is it coming from? Because a lot of people, when these emotions want to come up, like you said, they could be stored in your body from childhood, literally from the womb, from whatever
yeah,
was passed down to you, because trauma is passed down. So
yeah.
sometimes it won't make sense, and that's okay. People will feel these things, and all of a sudden they're like, what's wrong with me? And they try to shove it down. And it's
Mhm.
kind of like that bypassing, wanting to keep a positive mindset all the time. And it's like, no, the real work is when you can release like you said, it anchors you in like the heavier, the lower frequency, the lower vibration. And when you're able to release it, that is actually how you will raise your overall frequency, because it's like a weight energetically is being lifted. But in
Yeah.
order to lift that weight, you have to have the courage to feel those emotions. And it's uncomfortable. So sorry, going back to how it
Yeah.
felt creepy and uncomfortable for you.
Yes, so much shame, so
Mm,
much pain, so much judgment towards myself. Like, it was all there. And even to like go deeper than what you were saying about like the womb, it's like it can be past life stuff too. It's
mhm,
like, I know
mhm.
you've tapped into that, and it can be so confusing.
Yeah.
So that's why it's so important not to intellectualize it, but
Mhm,
to just let it be there and
mhm,
to presence it. And our bodies are so smart.
mhm.
They will not let those emotions come up if you don't have that safety built
Yeah,
to be able to hold it. Otherwise, it can be re-traumatizing.
yeah.
If
Mm,
you if you go and you try to
mhm,
feel and you feel frozen, it's
mhm.
because safety needs to be built. And
Yeah.
that's what my body was doing for a while. It was like, I can't even feel these emotions. Like, I can't feel anything. I know I don't
Numb.
feel great. I'm just numb.
Yeah.
And that is an emotion too. That
Mm,
feeling of frozenness, like, that is something that deserves to be held
mhm,
and understood. And I think what I've realized is compassion and acceptance is the medicine that I needed for
mm,
everything that was coming up, feeling frozen,
mhm,
feeling in fight or flight, feeling angry, sad,
mm,
shame, disgust, all of it just needed love,
mm,
compassion, and acceptance. And
mm,
telling myself it's safe for me to be here. It's safe for me to feel this. I don't have to feel high vibe all the time. I don't have to feel happy all the time. I'm not manifesting more pain by letting myself feel this. That's another dark part of what I learned. So it's like I had to rewire that as well. And, this is what I'm in the process of doing. And I think it is an ongoing process of
Mhm.
creating more safety, feeling more freedom, and you will have these moments where you feel immense peace on this
Mhm.
journey.
Mhm.
And then as you create that safety, making more space for
Mhm.
emotions to flow again. And so
Mhm.
that's really the gist of like what I've been doing that has actually
Mhm.
profoundly changed my
Mhm.
life. And I can feel that at such a deep level that I'm like going in and holding all parts of myself, creating this relationship with myself that cannot be
Mm.
broken or
Mhm.
shattered. I'm creating
Mhm.
immense strength from within. And
Mhm.
everything that I'm doing at this deep level is being mirrored outside of
Mhm.
me and will continue to be mirrored outside of me. And that's how you manifest, right? It's like you don't even
Yes.
have to like obsessively write down what you want. Like
No.
when you are connected to yourself, you're
Mm.
connected to your soul. Your soul knows what the fuck it's doing.
Yes, when
Okay.
you're in alignment, the path is
Yeah.
already carved. Your most fulfilling timeline is already carved. The ego likes to think it knows what the most fulfilling path is for you, but the ego is essentially just seeking things externally, and really those are the things that are not truly fulfilling for the soul. I
Yeah.
know that when I went on that journey, the journey you're talking about, because that's also when my life completely changed, when I went on to me, that's a true healing journey. When I really went on that, that's when everything started to shift for me. And I realized, like, oh my God, what I was seeking before, what I was trying to manifest before, was not actually in alignment with me. A lot of people are like, why aren't my manifestations coming in? Are they really in alignment with you? Are they really in alignment with your soul? And if you're unable to answer that question, there might be some deeper, and that's where it's like getting curious. Why am I trying to manifest money? Why am I going back to what you were saying with the coaching? It's understanding the why and
Yeah.
understanding the deeper root there. And when you can get to the root and heal and give that part of you love, because like you said, at the end of the day, that's all we need, because that's who we are, is
Mhm.
love at the end of the day, understanding and compassion. And when you can give that to yourself and form that sense of love and security and safety within self, oh baby, the world becomes literally magic.
Literally. Yes.
We're interrupting this episode to share something close to our hearts, our virtual healing circles. We have been loving them so much and meeting so many of you incredible people through them. Brittany and I are passionate about bringing people together to support one another and heal in community. We felt alone on our paths for so long, and coming together in community has been instrumental to our growth, and we've both seen the importance in it. We aren't meant to do this alone. In unity and vulnerability, we find strength, courage, and support each other on our paths back to ourselves. Our monthly virtual seminars blend discussions, workshops, and practices to nurture your mind, body, and spirit. Whether seeking guidance, healing, or a listening ear, our gatherings offer a safe, inclusive space for people to connect, heal, and grow. Join us on this journey of healing in community. Together we can heal, grow, and thrive. Register for the next circle using the link in the show notes. We hope to see you there.
Yeah, everything your ego is chasing after, it is chasing because there is a deeper core need within you that is not being met for like love, security,
Mhm,
safety, belonging, connection. And so
mhm,
if you give that to yourself and if you create safety even when maybe you don't feel like you have enough money or outer stability around you or love around you, when you start to give that to yourself,
mhm,
that's when you really develop that strength. And it's
mm,
yeah, it's a power that we all have. We all
mhm.
have the ability to tap into it.
Yeah, and we really do. And one last thing I want to say is we haven't really been taught, like growing up, we haven't been taught how to access that within ourselves because our parents didn't know, their
Yeah.
parents didn't know, and we're discovering these things, we're discovering these new modalities that can help, like what you do with psychotherapy or hypnotherapy. I always want to say psychotherapy for some
Yeah.
reason, but
There's
hypnotherapy.
probably a little bit of that in there just because of how I grew up. So
That makes that no, that makes a lot of sense, and, yeah, with your parents, because that's a really fascinating. I think it's so cool that both of your parents were,
therapy.
therapists,
Yeah.
and, one thing I wanna really say quickly on that too, it's like I believe that like every single person, we all have trauma from childhood, regardless of how amazing your parents are, regardless of how much your parents loved you. And it might not be like capital T trauma, but we all have things that we're working on and moving through. Like you said, that could have been from a past life, that could have been from the womb. So and I'm saying this because I know for me, I had parents that genuinely loved me, but because I had parents that genuinely loved me, I wasn't aware of my wounds for a really long time because I wasn't aware of it because I'm like, oh, my life was great. Like I always, and my life was like, I'm not trying to say it wasn't, but I didn't really understand how hurt I was because I always had food on the table, and I'm grateful for that. I was physically always taken care of. I always had clothes on my back, and I'm grateful for that. But because of those things, because it wasn't so in your face,
Yeah.
growing up, I was really unaware of those deeper wounds. And only, later in life, I really realized like, oh. So it's also giving yourself the permission to go there, because I needed to give myself the permission to accept that, if that makes
Yes.
sense.
It kind of reminds me of the name of your podcast, Multiple Truths. So it's like
Yeah.
you can have had an amazing family with so
Mm,
much love, and you can also have experienced
mm,
deep pain and
mm,
suffering and trauma.
mm,
And healing is understanding that all of that can exist at the
mm,
same
mm,
time and
mm.
that one doesn't discount the other.
Ugh, beautiful words of wisdom. Yes. Just yes. It's the light in the dark. And one other thing that's coming to mind that I wanted to talk about is you were saying before, like, you know, trying to manifest and trying to be high vibe and positive all the time. Like, we came to earth to be human, to feel the full range of emotion. We're not supposed to be happy all of the time. It's experiencing joy and happiness, that's a really high beautiful emotion, but to stay in that state all the time is almost impossible. Do you know what I'm saying? It's like we really want to create a sense of safety within, to remain, I don't know if neutral is the right word, and of course, like and hopefully happy, of course, hopefully happy. I'm not saying we're miserable all the time, but to experience those really exciting, beautiful, joyful moments, like when a new child comes in, or when you're experiencing love for the first time, or for the a millionth time, or when you receive a gift or something amazing happens, you're going to experience that uplifting energy. And then there's going to be times in life where something happens, a loved one passes away, you lose a job, or somebody hurts you, you're going to feel those lower emotions. And we're here to experience all of that, all of it. We're not supposed to just stay in this energy of happiness all the time. We wouldn't recognize it for what it was if we were to be in that space for forever. So it's also reminding yourself that we are human. We came here to experience the full range of emotion, and there's nothing wrong with you if you feel that sadness, or if you feel that, if you go through periods where you feel that. Essentially, it's creating the safety and security within oneself so that you remain safe and at peace with yourself, and you always know who you are amidst all of the emotion, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. I think when you were saying neutrality, I think it's like that peace, the
Peace.
peace that's underlying it as you allow yourself to experience the pain that's showing up, or the sadness, or the grief, or the loss, or the joy, or
Mhm,
the celebration. It's like
mhm,
the underlying sense of peace that none of this is permanent
mhm.
and I've got me no matter what.
Yes.
I'm here with me no matter what.
Well, thank you. Like, absolutely, I have, again, chills, but thank you. I'm looking at the time, and I'm like, I know that you and we can just talk for hours and hours and hours.
Mhm.
Normally we wrap it up at about an hour, so I feel like we should start to wrap this up, sadly. But for those listening, where can they find you?
So, where I'm hosting most right now is YouTube, and that's Rituals by Micaela. That's where my podcast is. That's where I have guided meditations and EFT tapping videos, rituals that have supported me on the journey. And then my website, micaelamarriner.com. I have a whole online shop of guided meditations and pre-recorded hypnotherapy sessions that are, very targeted at what we're talking about today. A lot of them are really catered towards creating connection with self, finding your light again that maybe you put out when you were a kid. There are all different types of pre recorded sessions there. So that's a great way to connect with me. I also have a submission box where you can ask me any question that I will talk about in my YouTube videos and on my podcast. So
Oh, I love that so much. So we'll have we'll have like your YouTube and your website linked in the show notes below so that it will be easy to find Micaela. Definitely go check her out, you guys. I mean, if you're here listening to this whole episode, I'm sure that you already got it from the episode, but she has so much wisdom to share. So definitely check her out. Micaela, thank you so much for your time today. It's always just such a pleasure to speak with you. Yeah. So thank you so much for being here. For those of you listening, thank you so much for being here as well. Thanks for so much for listening. And we will see you next Wednesday. Bye.
bye.
As we wrap up today's episode, we want to extend our deepest gratitude for joining us on this journey. Your support does not go unnoticed. If you enjoyed this episode and find value in our conversations, please take a moment to leave a review. Your feedback not only helps us grow, but also allows us to reach more people who can benefit from our community of healing and support. Every review, every rating makes a difference. Thank you for being a part of the Multiple Truths podcast family. Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of the Multiple Truths podcast. Keep speaking your truth and spreading your light. We love you, and we'll talk to you next Wednesday.